the system of equations. We must deal with them all at once. Always looking for solutions. Positive outlook overcomes obstacles getting in our way, cause affects more than we can sometimes see. Things for what they
Hello, my name is Roy Simpson, professor of mathematics at Cosumnes River College in Sacramento, California. Now, this video you're about to see is one of my older videos. The quality is not the same as my new video series. My intent is to make a newer version of this video at some point in the future. However, I want to make sure that students currently using my Mathematics in Review video series have access to as much help as possible when it comes to prerequisite topics. With that being said, let's get started.
Now, I really tire of math textbooks that have sort of just the bland problems. In California, there is a medicinal marijuana law that, well, it's not really a law. They allow them to run medicinal marijuana facilities. And a lot of authors would spend time avoiding topics like this because they think it's a civil no-no, I suppose. But the fact is, it still makes for great math problems. So I just think I make math problems out of anything I possibly can. And here's just one of the many that you can make math problems out of. And this is actually a pretty interesting math problem anyway. The 420 connection, a medical marijuana facility, finds that when it charges P dollars for an ounce of medicinal marijuana, it can sell 55 minus 1 over 20p ounces per month. By the way, because I typed that up, that is supposed to be 55 minus 1/20th times p ounces per month. So that's what it can sell. In fact, I'll call that, instead of sell, maybe I'll call that the demand. That's what people demand. People demand that from the 420 connection when they charge P dollars per ounce. On the other hand, they have somebody that supplies them. This business, 420 connection, has a supplier that grows all of the medicinal marijuana and then supplies it to them. And let's say their name is Green Growers Incorporated. So the Green Growers Incorporated say, hey, if you're going to charge P dollars per ounce, or if you're going to pay us P dollars per ounce, we'll supply you with 15 plus 1/4 times P ounces of medicinal marijuana for prescription sales. So in other words, the supply that they're given, they're going to give to the shop, is 15 plus 1/4 times P. So you have a demand by the public and the amount that would be supplied. Notice the demand by the public, by the way, starts at 55. And that's ounces per month. So 55 ounces per month at this facility is what it starts at, but it drops according to the price. So the higher the price, obviously the demand will lower. The supply, on the other hand, the supplier says, listen, I'll give you 15 ounces per month, but if you want to give me more money, I'll give you more. So I'll add another 1/4 ounce per dollar that you're willing to sell it for. This is kind of a nice way to kind of think about supply and demand. All right. So what price should the 420 connection charge per ounce in order to sell out of medicinal marijuana each month? So they want to sell all of what they have. So they have to figure out when their demand from their consumers meets the supply that they have. And I'm using a very fictitious situation here, but this works for any type of business model. You want supply to equal demand. You do not want to have more than what people demand, because then you have to pay rent on that. And you don't want to have less than what people demand. Well, mainly because you can make more money if you have exactly what they demand. So here we go. By the way, all of that, I didn't even follow this method. Sorry. First thing, I read and understood what's going on. The second thing was to label the unknowns. Well, they kind of gave us the unknowns in this situation. Let P equal dollars per ounce. So that's really, I mean, they gave us all that. Third thing I'm doing is I create equations, but they kind of gave us that too. So given. This happens every once in a while. We're lucky if they give us this stuff. Fourth thing we're going to do is build an equation involving these, and that's this part right here. So we want supply to equal demand. Supply is 15 plus 1/4 P, and we want that to equal demand, which is 55 minus 1/20th P. And actually, I should make a mention here. I kind of didn't know now. In mathematics, well, maybe I should say in physics and chemistry and biology, the case on your variables is very important. So if they start with a lowercase p, you should keep a lowercase p the entire time. I kind of cheated a little bit, and we tend to forget that, so it's somewhat important. So now I see I have a linear equation. I'm gonna forget about the problem now or about the word problem and focus on the linear equation here. In the linear equation, to solve that, remember we clean up both sides, but again, both sides are already cleaned up. We'll move variable terms to one side. So in this case, I'll probably move the -1/20p to the other side. So I'll add 1/20p to both sides, which means I have a little fractional arithmetic, and I won't go into my reasoning right now, but there's something I generally do with these problems prior to even doing this step, but I'll just wait for a moment until we're done with the problem, then I'll discuss it. So we have 1/4 plus 1/20. Those both have p's attached to it. I'm just going to multiply top and bottom of this by 5. So that gives me 5/20 plus 1/20, or in other words, 6/20, and this reduces to 3/10. So this is plus 3/10 p is equal to 55. And now I'll solve it. P has just been tied up into a knot, so what has happened to p? Well, the first thing that happened to p, whoever has hidden the value of p in this equation, they've decided to multiply it by 3/10. And after they messed it up doing that, the second thing they did was add 15 to it. So both those operations they performed to confuse us, to basically hide the value of p from us. But we can untie those, and whenever you untie a knot, you start with the last thing that got tied. Last thing that got tied was that positive 15. Untie that, it's a negative 15. And then the step prior to that was a multiplying by 3/10, so we're going to divide both sides by 3/10. We'll subtract 15 from both sides first, and that will give us 3/10 p is equal to 40. And now we'll go ahead and solve for p by multiplying both sides by 10 and dividing both sides by 3, or basically just dividing both sides by 3/10. If you divide both sides by 3/10, divide this by 3/10, you'll see these two, 3/10 over 3/10 turns into 1. I'll divide this side by 3/10. Notice how when I divide by a fraction over here, I write it as a division symbol. And the reason for that is the math is a little bit easier, because you can see, oh, I have 40 times 10/3. And usually people find that to be easier. So that's 400 thirds, which is roughly equal to 133.33. It's not really equal to that, but it's 133.33. $133.33. So if that's what they charge per ounce, I have no idea if that's, I have no idea. I think that might be way low. But if that's what they charge, they'll sell out. And their supply will equal their demand. Now, I did say that I would show you another way to solve this, a way that I would prefer, actually. A way that I prefer to solve it is, if somebody gives me an equation that looks like 15 plus 1/4 p equals 55 minus 1/20 p. Generally, after I've cleaned up sides, basically, once I get that step done, I tend to look at this and go, this has just a bunch of stuff I don't like. For one of the things I don't like fractions. So I find the LCD, which is 20 in this case, and I multiply every single thing by 20, by that LCD. So every single term in this equation, I'm going to multiply by 20. So I'll attach a 20 to that, I'll attach a 20 to this, I'll attach a 20 to that, and I'll attach a 20 to this. And while initially it looks like it would be horrible, because the 20 times 15 is not something that a lot of people know offhand, but it's 300. You see what happens, 4 goes into 25 times, and over here 20 times 55, well, if you don't know that offhand, you can always grab a calculator. That's what I basically just did. It comes out to 1100. And so now look at my equation. Much easier to work with. I'll just add p to both sides to get 300 plus 6p is equal to 1100. Subtract 300 from both sides, and then go ahead and divide by 6. You get the same answer. So that's often what I do when I see an equation. Once I get to an equation that has fractions, I often just multiply both sides by the LCD. It's a good habit to get into and makes your life a little bit easier in the long run.
Thank you for watching this review video. As I mentioned previously, it's an older video that will eventually be updated. However, it should get the job done for you. As always, this content should be prerequisite to the course in which you're currently enrolled. If you found this material unfamiliar or if it was confusing to you, then I recommend you review any prerequisite material mentioned in the video. If you find you're continually having to research the prereq material here, you might want to consider speaking to your instructor about other course options. On that note, I sincerely hope these videos help you achieve success in your transfer level math and science courses. Cue the music.
It's the system of equations. We must deal with them all at once. Always looking for solutions. Positive outlook overcomes obstacles getting in our way. Cause affects more than we can sometimes see. Things for what they are and work together until you feel at peace. Just listen close. Don't talk too much that isn't kosher. You may really hurt inside. It doesn't justify you to speak too loud and cry.